An important aspect in the transport layer is also buffering. In fact, we have buffers both at the transmitter and at the receiver side. In fact, in order to implement flow control and the sliding window at the transport layer, it's important to also define how the buffering is managed. In fact, the reception buffer at the receiver, so we have a source, we have a destination, we have a buffer on the destination side. The reception buffer, of course, is limited to a certain amount. So in this case, to W positions, to W segments that can be received. And in fact, also the receiving application on the user side can have a variable absorption rate. So in fact, upon the arrival of the packet, then it is possible that since the application process has a variable absorption rate, then it is possible then when new packets arrive that the reception buffer might be full, and hence the packets, in this case the segments, might have to be discarded. So the idea of implementing flow control is that you can adjust the sending rate on the transmitter side so as to avoid having packet loss by preventing that the packets which arrive at the destination are not arriving in a scenario or in a situation in which the buffer is actually full. So in fact, in order to implement flow control, it's possible to implement some sort of window mechanism, as we have seen in the go back N. However, the problem with the go back N is that the transmission size, in fact, the window size N, defines also the number of packets that can be sent by the transmitter. In this case, with the go back N, we have defined that up to N packets can be sent without having received an acknowledgement. However, if the application on the receiver side reads the packets slowly, it is possible to arrive in a situation in which the packets need to be dropped because the buffer is simply full. So what can be done? Do we send the packets, do we send the acknowledgements immediately? Do we wait for the receiving application to absorb the data in the buffer? Of course, the actual solution is somewhere in the middle. Let's look at a couple of naive solutions and then define what can be a more effective or a smart solution. So the first naive solution can be that the receiver sends the acknowledgements immediately. However, this can cause the transmission window to slide. So we have new information units that are being transmitted and received on the receiving side. However, if the buffer on the side of the receiver, due to the fact that the application process maybe processes the packets in a slower fashion, then we can eventually have also packet loss. The other solution is that the receiver sends acknowledgements only when the units of information are passed to the upper layers. However, there is again a risk that if the receiver is slow, there may be many retransmissions because there are timeouts. So if the timeout is not set properly, the fact that the receiver might be too slow will lead to, again, having a lot of retransmission, and as a result, the network resources are utilized very poorly. So in this case, what should we do? Should we increase the timeout or what should be the solution? So we've seen two naive solutions which don't seem to be very efficient. In fact, the better option is in fact to decouple the sending of the acknowledgements from the flow control. This is possible by defining an explicit credit. This means defining a window which is added in the acknowledgements which basically indicates the current state of the buffer. So instead of just relying on the fact of whether to send acknowledgements right away or whether to wait for a given moment in time, you take into account the current state of the network. So this window field, which is added in the acknowledgements, indicates how many information units can still be received. And all of this solution is in fact adopted in the TCP, which is the main protocol implemented in the transport layer.